Hello everybody, this is GamerGar and welcome to the Parsnip Challenge. We are going to play through one whole month of spring on a brand new farm with one primary goal: the selling of parsnips. We are going to buy, plant and sell as many parsnips as possible. This video is going to highlight one very important factor. Just how powerful is the parsnip? How profitable is the parsnip? And how does it compare to the rest of the metacrops that people use in spring when it comes to making money and leveling up the farming profession? Let's jump straight into the first day. We start by waking up from our lovely sleep and look what we get. 15 fabulous free parsnips. I just can't wait to plant these down on the farm. Before we can plant our lovely parsnip seeds, we need to do a little bit of farm management. Lots of debris are going to get in our way when it comes to planting hundreds and thousands of parsnips over the next couple of days. Now the rules to this challenge are quite simple. We can only make money from selling parsnips. Absolutely nothing else will be sold. We're going to visit Pierre. We're going to spend all of our money on parsnip seeds. As you can see, from day one we do start with a fairly decent batch of parsnips. We will also use the mixed seeds that we get in the hopes to get more parsnips as well. But if we end up getting crops that aren't parsnips, it just means we can't sell those. So we will run around Intercept Forest to get forageables. At the end of the day, we get a foraging skill of 1. The next day is spent watering up the parsnips. When we were finished, we just got a mail there from Pierre to talk about the backpack upgrade, and we also got some mail from Willie to say we can head down and get a fishing rod from him, and that's what we're going to do straight away. Now all of the fish we capture in this challenge will not be sold at all. We're going to use that fish for health and energy for the mines. We're also going to run around the Intercept Forest as well to get even more forageables, to get some additional energy. Despite the fact that it is a parsnip challenge, you will see a fairly blended run because we also want to get sprinklers. And once we get a farming level of 6, we can make quality sprinklers. It would be nice to bang out huge amounts of those much earlier rather than later. Now the next day was raining, but before we do anything today, we're going to cut down a couple of more trees to get our hands on some wood. All of that wood will be used to make a chest. Once the chest has been created, we're going to head on up to the lake, plant down the chest. Because we just have the one backpack slot, it's very important we put a chest up there so we're not throwing away valuable items. The next day it is back to watering up the parsnips. Just one more day to go and we get to harvest all these and sell them, and then we can buy even more parsnips. Now it's going to ramp up very quickly because parsnips are very cheap, so eventually it will take us much longer to water up all those crops. Day number 5, a pesky crow managed to nab one of our parsnips. Not to worry though, there was plenty more parsnips we could pick up and sell to Pierre. Now we're not going to go straight into the mines. We need to sell these first, buy more parsnips, plant them because that's the priority right now, and then when we're finished we can start venturing into the mines. We're now going to go to Pierre, sell all of the parsnips. Let's see how much money we're going to get. We ended up with 1,554 gold. Let's see how much parsnips we can now buy. So that was a grand total of 77 parsnips. So we're going to hoe more of the ground, plant these parsnips, and then we are going to wait for them to grow, sell, rinse and repeat. It's going to be very interesting to see how many parsnips we end up with at the end of the challenge. But what's going to be more interesting is how much money we're going to end up with at the end of the challenge. What I'm aiming for right now, believe it or not, is a goal of 100,000 gold. It would be very nice to make at least that from selling huge amounts of parsnips. We spent a little bit of time in the mines. We got a couple of skill ups. It's very important to get skill ups in farming. The scarecrow is going to come in fair's handy later on, so the crows aren't sniping all our parsnips all the time. The next day starts with the watering of parsnips, of course. Once we're finished here, we're going to cut down a couple of more trees. The seeds we get from trees are actually very important in the early days because you can combine a lot of the seeds to make field snacks, and field snacks are very good for energy early on. And we are going to need so much energy, especially when the parsnips start to ramp up. But we also need a lot of energy to continuously cut down trees, because when it comes to cutting down trees in the early days, the amount of energy it actually consumes is insane. By systematically cutting down the oak trees, the pine trees and the maple trees, we can make a continuous amount of field snacks to keep us going for the entirety of the day. When we're finished running around the place getting forageables, I decided to do a little bit of fishing for the rest of the day. Getting bubbles was real nice. Now we got a few more skill ups today as well, which was great. Now what you're noticing here as well is that we're not doing any sort of min-max tactics. because the challenge is revolving around the parsnips. So I'm not really pushing myself to get huge amounts of fish or, to get 300 or 400 or 500 pieces of wood in one day. We're just kind of taking it a bit easy. The main thing I want to see here is just how good parsnips are if all we did was just plant them, grow them up, and sell them. So we're not going to be resetting days. We're not going to be trying to get to the desert festival by day 15. This is just a different type of challenge. Basically an experiment to see how good the parsnips actually are. The rainy day on number 7 here was absolutely amazing. It was just so nice not having to water all of the parsnips. And I'm not the biggest fan of watering crops, but sometimes it just has to be done, especially if we're doing specific challenges like this. So I'm at a furnace today. The furnaces will be needed if we want to make lots of sprinklers later on. It's then back to the watering of parsnips. Now, we are going to get to harvest those parsnips very soon, and it will be very interesting to see how many parsnips we can buy back then. Once we were finished with watering, it was straight back down into the mines. We're very close now to the dark floors, and we're taking our time. We're just getting as much copper ore as we can along the way. Now, we didn't have a wood club, we didn't have a Neptune's glaive, we didn't have a broken trident. What we had now was just a regular steel short sword. And you know what? It's not a bad weapon, but certain enemies in this game are just terrible to fight with it. One big example are the golems you encounter on the dark floors. They're an absolute nightmare to fight with this sword. You'll be swinging at them for half the day. So if we do encounter those golems, we will try our best to just avoid them and move on down to the next layer if possible. I wonder how long it would take Donkey Kong to get down to layer 120 in the mines. Probably 5 seconds. We made it down to floor 40, which wasn't bad. By day number 8, we picked up the slingshot. At the end of the day, we managed to get mining up to 2. We can now make staircases, which is pretty nice. The next day, it was raining. Thanks be to Yevon. We're now going to pick up all of these parsnips, and we're going to sell them. Today is also Tuesday, which is great. That means we can buy and sell from Pierre. We have to be very careful when it comes to the buying and selling of parsnips, because if we collected those parsnips on a Wednesday, Pierre's closed, we'd kind of screw ourselves over, because that means a lot of the ground would unhoe itself, and it would take a lot more time and energy the next day to prep the farm again. So we always need to watch out on what day it is, because Wednesday is one of those days where it can just sneak up on you, and it can really put a dampener on your runs. Now, of course, we have the Joja option as well, but without the Joja membership, purchasing crops off them would be more expensive. So for the purpose of this challenge, we do want to stick to Pierre as much as possible. Now, I am going to use basic sprinklers in this challenge because the parsnips are going to ramp up quite quickly, and at this moment in time, we do have a lot of copper collected, and we're collecting iron as well. Because of the specifics of this challenge, we can't run off to Clint and get a tool upgraded because we simply don't have the money for it. All of the money we do make, we do, more or less want to prioritize it on parsnips. That means we're stuck with the basic tools for the challenge, which is unfortunate. But you know what? It wouldn't be a challenge if we didn't have things like that, to kind of make this a bit more interesting. Level 2 farming gives us the recipe for the sprinkler. So the next day, as you can see, I've planted the crops in a way where I can put down a lot of basic sprinklers, and they will hit a lot of these crops properly. It took me a very long time to do this because basic sprinklers are something I'm just not very familiar with. I normally skip the basic sprinkler and I end up just, going straight for the quality sprinkler and making loads of those. So putting on the basic sprinkler felt a bit strange to me, but you know what? It's a learning curve like anything else. It's an experience. You've probably noticed as well that we haven't upgraded our backpack because all money we're getting is going on parsnips. So we need to think ahead all the time when it comes to what we're going to bring with us to the mines, what we're going to bring with us to the lake if we're fishing, what we're going to bring with us to the beach. The last thing we want is to go to an area with a backpack filled up with items, only to throw half of those items away. Now on floor 49 in the mines here, we got a very nice floor, and it was quite painful fighting this bad, with the steel short sword. I was really praying for something decent out of a crate, maybe a wooden club, maybe a forest sword or something like that, just anything, I'd even take the crystal dagger at this stage. Now the more iron we get today, the more sprinklers we can make, so it's absolutely worth our time, even though we have a basic pickaxe, to try to get all of these nodes. And we also have to watch out for our energy because the axe hasn't been upgraded. It takes quite a number of swings to collect these iron deposits. And we don't have huge amounts of forage for energy, so it's just one of those things where we have to be very careful. We also don't want to use up a whole amount of copper to make cherry bombs as well, because we need the copper as well to make sprinklers. So it's just one of those things. So the parsnip challenge is actually much harder than what I anticipated it to be, because of the limitation on what we can spend our money on. Now, there's nothing stopping us from spending our money on a tool upgrade or a backpack upgrade, but why would we do that over purchasing more parsnips? You know? So at the end of the day, there's kind of a balance there. What are we willing to do every single day with just the minimum backpack, the basic tools? Is it worth our time to spend some money to get certain things upgraded? Or do we just keep spending all of our money on parsnips over and over and over? So as the challenge progresses, as we get more and more parsnips, those decisions will become critical in the success of this challenge. Once we're finished watering up all the crops, we're going to go straight back into the mines and try to make our way down to the bottom floors, collecting iron as we go along. If we see the odd copper node, we will of course grab that too, so we can make more sprinklers. The more sprinklers now we can put on the farm, the easier it's going to be for us going forward. Once we're finished in the mines, it's back to the farm the next day, and it is the watering of crops. Now, it's getting a little bit easier all the time because we can make more sprinklers, which is great, but at the end of the day, these sprinklers can only water 4 crops at a time. But you know what? It's better than nothing, I suppose. Now, we do have a lot of ores collected from the mines, so we will throw those into the furnaces, smelt up more bars, and make even more sprinklers. I never thought, to be honest with you, the day would come where I would be using regular sprinklers, but it just goes to show that if you're very limited in terms of tool upgrades and backpack upgrades, the sprinklers can come in clutch no problem at all. Now, today is the 12th, tomorrow the crops will be fully grown, but we're not going to harvest the crops on the 13th because the 13th is the Easter event and we can't access Pierre to purchase more parsnips, so we'll leave the crops in the ground and harvest them the next day. We made more progress in the mines today, got a skill up in combat, which was nice. Now, the skill ups are still important because it means we're waking up the next day with full energy. We had to be very accurate today when it comes to watering the crops because we didn't want to put up any of the parsnips. That just meant more spots to hoe the next day. Once we're finished watering a few crops that we could water, we're going to put everything back into our chest and we're just going to grab some forageables before we go back up to the mines and attempt to make some progress. Now, I will keep the hoe out because you never know when you come across a spot that can yield mixed seeds or something else. The carrots are still really nice for energy. Despite the fact that today was an event day, it just meant we couldn't go into the town or go through the town to get to other places, but we could still go to the mines and we could have went into Cindersap Forest if we wanted to as well. Now, we're going into the starter levels of the mines today. Primarily, we're looking for copper ores so we can make more sprinklers, because if we think about it, you need a level 6 farming to make quality sprinklers, and I don't know when that was going to be achieved. So for now, we're just going to double down on regular sprinklers and hope for the best. Now, getting mining to 5 will actually be beneficial to us because we can get the perk plus 1 ore per node. That means more copper, more iron, more gold, more everything, so we can make more sprinklers. So we're still kind of hitting multiple birds with the one stone when it comes to making the most out of this challenge. There's also a chance as well that we're going to come across weeds in the mines and we can whack those. There's a chance we can get some mixed seeds. And we would of course plant all of the mixed seeds that we get in the hopes that we get even more parsnips. Farming copper, stone and iron wasn't too bad with the regular pickaxe. If we got down into the bottom layer and we started farming gold, that's when you really start to notice just how weak your starter tool is, especially when it comes to trying to get huge amounts of resources every single day. When I was fairly satisfied with how much copper ores I had gotten, I decided to farm the middle section of the mines for the rest of the day. The more iron ore we can get now, the more sprinklers we can make. And we also have to think about the parsnips that we're going to be harvesting tomorrow. Once we sell all those, we're going to have even more money to buy even more parsnips, so it's very important we can keep up with the sprinklers so we don't end up spending literally the whole day watering up crops. Because today was the 14th, we can now pull up all of the parsnips and then bring them to Pierre to sell them to make a pretty nice profit. It's now going to be very interesting to see how many parsnips we can buy after selling all these to Pierre. And this leads back to probably the best tip I can give you. It is probably the ultimate tip, and that is the art of rinse and repeating. Buy crops or buy anything. Process it, sell it, make a profit, buy more, repeat the process, buy more, repeat the process. And that's how easy it is to make money in Stardew Valley. Look how many parsnip seeds you're after buying right now. over 265 pieces of parsnip seeds. We're also going to make some basic fertilizer using all of the sap that we have collected, and this is something that I just don't do enough of with sap. And I can end up with thousands and thousands of sap at the end of a challenge sometimes. But a lot of people seem to sidestep this, but you can use sap to make fertilizer, and I know it's basic, but it's better than nothing. It will increase the odds of your crops being of a higher quality. That means more money for you. Once this fertilizer is put down, it will last, provided we can put crops on it all the time. So this is going to last us for the rest of the season. It's a great investment, and the more silver star and gold star crops we can get, the more money we can get, the more parsnips we can buy, plant and sell, and do it all over again until we're absolutely sick of growing parsnips. Now, we spent the whole day planting these parsnips, watering them up, running over them back with our regular watering can, filling it up with water. The grind was on, but this was probably one of the most interesting challenges I have ever done, believe it or not. I had a great time doing this, and because we now have well over 265 parsnips on the farm, you can imagine what kind of money we're going to get when we start all these in a few days, and how many parsnips we're going to buy, and then we have to plant all them. So we're only halfway through the season now, and already it's taken us this length of time to plant and water up all the crops. So sprinklers are now becoming more important than ever. So we got a few skill ups today. We got level 4 farming, which was nice. We can make some handy things there. Level 5 farming. We're going to go with tiller. Crops were 10% more. That's a no-brainer. I woke up the next day to a message: the spreading of weeds caused damage to my farm. That means weeds have potentially claimed some of the lives of my parsnips, unfortunately. So it's always important to whack away those weeds if they get too close to your crops. Now, I know they were just parsnips, but in this challenge, every single parsnip is precious. So once we whacked away some of the weeds, we went down into the mines and we're just farming up more iron so we can make more sprinklers. We are getting down deeper into the mines. It would be nice to pick up a much better weapon than what we have at the moment. If we can upgrade our sprinklers to quality, that means we can use our copper to make cherry bombs, and we can focus down gold and iron ores and quartz then to make the quality sprinklers. So we still have a lot of options to make life a lot easier for us on the farm. Picking up the firewalker boots will make our life a little bit easier because we have a much higher defense rating now. When I got down to floor 81, it became quite clear just how much of a grind it would be to get quality sprinklers. Just look at the amount of swings there we had to put into that gold node. And the great thing about cherry bombs is that it doesn't matter if it's a gold node, an iridium node, a radioactive node, it'll wipe it out in one explosive. The next day started with the watering of crops. We're now past midday and we are still watering crops. Thank God for the field snacks. And this just goes to show how much of a challenge this has now become. We really need to get more sprinklers made. Thankfully, the furnaces are hard at work, smelting up those bars that we so desperately need. Once we were finished with watering up all the crops, we just went back down into the mines to get down even further again. If we saw the gold ores, we did absolutely go for them because we're going to need gold sooner rather than later if we're going the quality sprinkler route. It's only a matter of time now before we get more skill ups from the parsnips and we can make quality sprinklers. Level 5 mining was nice, plus 1 ore per vein. The next day started with the smelting of iron again. Then it was back to watering the crops, and if you just look at the sheer amount of crops we have here, it was just painful to water them all up. But we're over halfway through the challenge, so now it's time to just tighten that belt buckle, pull up the socks, and just grind it out. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to grind this thing into the ground, and we're going to see how much money we can make at the end of this month by just selling parsnips. Let me know in the comments how much you think we're going to make before the end of this video. The goal, of course, is 100,000 gold. Now today was actually a blessing because it was Salmonberry time. So you can bet your uncle that we are going to run around today to try to find as many bushes as possible that will give us Salmonberries, because we are desperately going to need all of the energy that they can give us over the next few days. Because once those parsnips are fully grown up and we sell them out to Pierre, you can probably imagine how many parsnips we need to buy off him then and plant and water. So today is finally the day. We've got over 265 parsnips ready to be plucked and sold. Off to the great beyond they go. We're now going to visit Pierre. We're going to make his day and sell him all of these parsnips. So it puts our gold up to 8,000. 505. Let's see how many parsnips we can now buy with this, and it's going to be a lot. Over 400 parsnips, 425 to be exact. Now we need to go back to the farm with these, hold back the tears, put on a brave face, and water up all these crops. As we can see, the layout is now a little bit different. We've now done it in a grid that supports quality sprinklers. We just got level 6 farming there. We can now make the quality sprinklers, so we're going to try to make as many of those now as possible to automate the watering process. Those rainy days were an absolute blessing, and if it wasn't raining today, I imagine the tears would have come out of my character would have done the job as well. We're picking up more parsnips today because we just couldn't get them watered on time the previous days, and that can happen sometimes because there's just so many parsnips on the farm. We can't really upgrade our tools, we're still using all basic stuff, and eventually we're going to end up with thousands of these things. So it's going to be interesting in the next couple of days to see how many parsnips are going to end up on the farm, and if we can make enough quality sprinklers to keep up with the demand. The fire quartz are great. You can pop them into a furnace and get back 3 refined quartz. So it's always nice to get some fire quartz. Up and back to floor 81 over and over again, gathering resources seems to be working out for me quite well. I'm getting lots of gold as well, and because I already have lots of iron, it's easy enough to make more quality sprinklers. I just need to accumulate lots of gold now and we're going to be sorted. Any excess copper we get our hands on, we're going to make cherry bombs, and we'll end up detonating the nodes just to save time and energy as well. The gold nodes give 18 XP every time you break one open. It's actually pretty good, so if we can chain up huge amounts of these today, we're going to be getting some mining levels tonight, which is great. The levels are still very important even if you don't get the perks, because you're getting proficiency. The more you level up a skill, the more proficient you get. That means the less energy you will consume when you're using said skill. Now we got another rainy day today. That's right, we got back-to-back rainy days. Extremely lucky. If we didn't get the rainy day, instead of going to the mines getting resources, it would have been half the day or even the full day watering up crops on the farm. Because I now had the obsidian edge, I did feel a bit safer when I was coming across enemies, because the obsidian edge, in all fairness, is a pretty good weapon, and it can hold its own against a lot of the Skull Cavern entities as well. So it's a trusty friend, and I have brought it into the Skull Caverns on numerous occasions if I haven't picked up anything better. Now getting to floor 100 is going to be a massive bonus for us, because that star drop will increase our maximum energy, and that is just so important right now. So eventually we will stop spamming floor 81 all of the time, and we will try to get down a little bit deeper just to claim the rest of the prizes that the regular mines has to offer. Now we got very lucky today and we picked up a nice new weapon. It's a big upgrade from the obsidian edge. This is called a slammer, and you can bring this beautiful hammer straight into the Skull Caverns and decimate the enemies within. It's got very high base damage, and it's got the secondary function, the ground pound, which will make short work of most of the things that exist in this game. Now I decided to make some cherry bombs because I knew I wasn't really going to use the copper anymore, because at the moment we were just all about iron, coal and refined quartz. And if you take a look at that gold cluster, it was just so satisfying to detonate that whole thing up, and I got lots of gold from it, which was great. I'm now going to go back to the farm here. We're going to get all of our furnaces and we're going to bring them up into the mines, because I feel like I can be a lot more efficient if I just set them all up here, because I can always just go in and out using the elevator and I can just top back up the furnaces again. Using this method, I'll be able to accumulate resources way faster. Refined quartz, iron bars, gold bars, we'll be able to make tons of quality sprinklers in no time at all. And because I was collecting more copper and stone, I was able to make even more furnaces, maximizing my output every couple of in-game hours. I kept thinking to myself, the next time I have to buy parsnips, it's probably going to be well over 1,000 of them. So the more quality sprinklers we can make now, the less watering we're going to have to do. So this is just so critical right now to get all this sorted out. Now we didn't pass out in the mines. We went back to the farm before it got too late, and we're going to make some quality sprinklers that we managed to gather the resources for today. All of these sprinklers are going to go straight down on the farm, and it's going to save us a lot of time and energy tomorrow. If we just take a quick look at the farm now, we have a lot of sprinklers set up, but there's still huge amounts of slots that have to be filled up with sprinklers, but it's not too bad. And the remaining slots that aren't automated when it comes to the watering process, it shouldn't take us huge amounts of time to get that sorted tomorrow. We're now going into day number 21, and it is the final week of the challenge. And we start today like we start every single other day, the watering of crops. Now fortunately, we only had to water a handful of crops today. It wasn't too bad because we had so many sprinklers put down, but we had to think about the next batch of parsnips. It was going to be a big batch. We could not take it easy. We had to go back into the mines and we had to grind it out. We needed iron, we needed gold, we needed quartz to turn into refined quartz, and we needed a lot of it today. Getting the diamond made me happy, but then it made me sad because I couldn't use the diamond. I couldn't sell it for 750 gold. There was no point gifting it to someone because no one's going to help me on my farm in spring. All I could do was either put it into a chest or put it into my trash can because it was absolutely useless in this current challenge. If we could access the desert, we could have traded in for a triple shot espresso, but you can probably guess by now, we're not going to be seeing the desert or skull cavern runs in spring. Now, all of the fighting we have been doing has paid off. We got a skill up in combat, which is nice. We will take fighter or attack steel, 10% more damage, and it does make a difference. Level 6 mining was nice too. We could make bombs. Now look, we're probably not going to make any bombs because we need all of the iron ores we can get. Now today was an absolutely fabulous day. For starters, it was raining. That means I didn't have to water crops today, which is always going to be a great day regardless of what other things happen. If it's a rainy day, it's a good day, period. We're going to sell all of the parsnips now to Clint. It brings us up to 14,218 gold. We're going to buy more parsnip seeds. How many parsnip seeds are we going to buy? Over 700 parsnip seeds. 710 to be exact. Demetrius has paid a visit too, and he's going to give us an option now between the mushrooms and the bat cave. No, look. The mushrooms is a no-brainer because we get the mushrooms every 2 days, and that's going to give us health and energy. And we're going to need all of the energy we can muster. So as you can see, the farm is now kind of broken up into two sections where, like, we're still using the basic sprinklers. It would be quite wasteful to pickaxe all of those up because we can't replace them with quality sprinklers. We just haven't made that much yet. Now on the 22nd, it's going to be a day of planting crops. Huge amounts of crops to plant. We got more skill ups in farming thanks to all of the parsnips we have been putting up, and at this rate we're probably going to get farming level 10 in the next few days when you just look at the amount of parsnips that we're pulling up here and the sheer amount of parsnips we have planted on the farm. Last night I went to sleep, I had a dream about pulling up parsnips. I just wanted to share that with you. Now once all of these parsnips have been collected, we will go straight back to Pierre, sell him the parsnips and buy even more. So what's happened now is that we kind of have two different families of parsnips. It just means 2 days straight of pulling up parsnips, but you know what? That's the fun part. It's actually fun putting up all the parsnips. Sometimes I wish I could just take out an iridium sight and just swing it around a few times, but alas, it's not meant to be. So we were now up on over 10,000 gold. Thanks to selling all those parsnips, we're now going to buy way more parsnips and we're going to plant those. We bought over 500 parsnips. Time to plant the whole lot of them. Now, when you look at the amount of ground I've hoed up here, it actually takes a very long time to get that done. Once all these parsnips have been planted, look at the sheer amount of crops we need to water. Yes, we do have a lot of quality sprinklers, but we simply don't have enough, and what's going to happen now is I'm just not going to get all these crops watered today. We didn't have the time, we didn't have the resources. I still had even way more parsnips I had to plant, I just didn't have the time to hoe up the rest of the ground. And today is the 23rd. So what's happening now is we just couldn't keep up with the amount of parsnips we were purchasing from Pierre. And there's only so many rainy days you're going to get in spring, and I know I've been luckier than most with the rainy days, and this could have been a whole lot worse. I've played through spring before, and you get the rainy day on the 3rd, you mightn't see another one until summer when you get the lightning storm. We didn't pass out tonight because it got to 2 o'clock. We passed out because your character was exhausted. We did get level 4 foraging, which was nice. The next day started and it's the watering of crops yet again. There's a couple of birds on the farm that are eating seeds, but it's fine. Even if they eat 1 or 2, it's not going to affect the run that much, you know. Now we end up spending the entirety of today watering up these crops. I didn't even have time to go into the mines to gather resources. So this is now the problem. if we're spending all our time watering crops, and we can't do anything else, we're basically stuck in a horrible loop. Even if we had a copper watering can or a steel watering can, it would have made such a difference. But having this basic watering can is just so painful watering up these crops. But you know what? There is light at the end of the tunnel. We are on the 25th. We're almost finished with the challenge. This is primarily going to be the very last batch of parsnips. So it's going to be very interesting now to see how much money we make when we sell all of these crops. There's going to be a lot of crops here that we get to sell, well over 1,000. If we'll make 100,000, I just don't know. We have a lot of parsnips, I just don't know if we have enough to make those kind of figures. But look, we're going to find out in a couple of days anyway, so let's just grind it on, water up the crops, and get on with it. Hopefully tomorrow, or maybe even the next day, will be a rainy day so we don't have to do this. Now the reason why I'm not using my editing techniques and speeding up all these scenes is because I just kind of want to get the point across. You know, where how boring this game can be sometimes when you're trying to min-max or if you're trying to do specific challenges. Sometimes when we're min-maxing, we're trying to complete certain goals, we do end up with fields like this, filled up to the top with crops, and we're trying our best to manipulate the weather, but just look how agonizing it is when you're going around with a basic watering can, and you're just watering crops. It's just painful. The next day was the 26th, we get to harvest the first big batch of parsnips, which is great. We can sell these parsnips, but there isn't really any point buying other parsnips because we just don't have the time to grow them all up. Now I have to say, this challenge has been quite fun, and if you'd like challenges like this, subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments. And this was quite a unique challenge, and this is something I've been wanting to do for a while now, just to play by very strict rules, focus on one crop, plant it, sell it, rinse and repeat, just to see how much money you could make by the end of spring. And the parsnip was a great crop to trial that out because number one, when it comes to money, it's a weak crop. I knew I was going to end up with thousands of these things, but the big question I had was, even if we ended up with thousands, would it be enough to make 100,000 gold? Probably not, but let's see how close we're going to get anyway. So once we've finished collecting all these parsnips, there's still pretty big bulks of land that we have to water up. So we're going to spend a great portion of today doing just that. Or are we? You see, I'm quite resourceful sometimes, and I realised one thing when I picked up all these parsnips. That ground that we used to grow the parsnips is not going to be used anymore. So why just have the sprinklers sit there and have them do nothing? Today is the 26th. I could very simply pickaxe up all these sprinklers that aren't being used and move them over to the other crops. And just wait a few days for them to fully grow. Why put myself through the bother and the pain of manually watering up all these crops where I can just relocate the sprinklers and simply wait? So that's exactly what we're going to do. And it's like what my good dad tells me all the time, why work hard when you can work smart? Now relocating the sprinklers will save us huge amounts of time, but it is not going to cover every single crop that we have on the farm. We'll still need to break out the watering can and water up the crops, but it's not going to be as painful as before. I know I more or less spent on the regular sprinklers in the past, and I've said to people in the comments, well look, because you can level up farming so quick to start at the game, it's always a good idea to just ignore the regular sprinkler and just go all in for the quality sprinkler. But I have to say, the regular sprinklers really came in clutch for me in this challenge. They made a huge difference, and if I didn't focus down on regular sprinklers, I don't think I would have been able to water as many parsnips as I could have. I don't think I would have been able to make as much money. So a big thumbs up for the regular sprinklers. Despite the fact that they only cover 4 crops, it's still 4 less crops you have to worry about, 4 less crops you have to water. At the end of the day, we got a farming skill of 9. We didn't get to 10, but we're actually fairly close to getting to 10. We also made over 15,000 gold today from selling the lovely parsnips. The next day started with the collection of even more parsnips. Now it doesn't cover all the parsnips on the farm, but it does cover the big majority of them. Just look at the sheer amount of parsnips that we get to pull up here. So I imagine this is now going, it should push us up to the farming skill of 10, which is nice. We don't get any sort of extra money boons by pushing farming skill up to 10. We just have the usual choice of agriculturist, crops grow 10% faster, or artisan products are worth 40% more. It doesn't matter which one we pick, we're not going to get any additional profits for selling all of these parsnips. But I have to say, it was extremely satisfying picking up all these parsnips and watering up the rest of these crops. I was very motivated because I was now at the end of the challenge and there was still a lot of parsnips in the ground that had to be grown. Could we actually get up to 100,000 gold? We're going to find out very soon in this challenge. At the end of the day, we finally harvested enough parsnips to get our farming skill up to 10. It will take agriculturists for now, it doesn't really make a difference, we just had to take something. We made a total of 19,774 gold today. Combine that with the 15,000, we're now up on over 35,000 gold. That actually isn't too bad, you know, going into summer. That'll get you a couple of pieces of starfruit, no problem, if you had the bus repaired. Speaking of which, it's almost enough to get the bus repaired, so you could do some skull cavern runs if you wanted to. But we're not finished yet. There's still one last batch of parsnips to pick up on the final day of spring. What a challenge this has been. Let me know in the comments what you thought about it. It's now finally time to see how much we made in total from selling all of these parsnips. And the great thing was that we strictly just sold parsnips. We sold absolutely nothing else. Not even quest rewards were taken. It was just strictly parsnips. Also, look at the size of the farm that we have built in spring. Now, this was the standard farm layout, but we used up a huge amount of space. And normally I wouldn't use up that amount of space in spring because it would be more of a blended run. But it just goes to show as well how superior the standard farm is because it gives you that space. So the next day, let's look at our total earnings. We made 92,391 gold. Unfortunately, we didn't get it up to the 100,000 gold, but we got very close, and we even have 46,000 gold going into summer, which I think is absolutely amazing from literally just sticking to parsnips. We also made some decent progress in the mines, and we managed to nab a good couple of skills in other professions as well. It's also nice to get the farming up to 10. Overall, it was a nice run, I was happy with it. I'd love to hear your opinion in the comments when it comes to parsnip challenges like this. Would you attempt the parsnip challenge yourself? And if so, would you have sacrificed some money to get tool upgrades, etc.? Let me know how you would have approached it. And thanks again everyone for watching the video, I really appreciate you.